Hi.
Hi there.
Are you my introducer?
I'm going to be your introducer.
How cool.
Okay.
Bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Victoria.
I will try to live up to that introduction. I have to tell you that I'm handicapped because of this. I am fully one-half Italian, and that means that I really need both hands in order to speak. I'll do my best. It's wonderful that you're here today. We're here to talk about the love-powered way to overcome overeating. I do want to give you a little quiz to start out with and see where you might fit in this particular topic. But before I do that, I feel that I have to justify myself to the one person in this room who is thinking, what can that skinny bitch possibly know about what I have to go through around food and weight? Well, I want to tell you that I know quite a bit, because food and weight was the combined bane of my existence for 33 years. For the past 25 years, it has not been, and I want to help you get to that point if indeed you're having this kind of struggle today. When I was 1 year old, it was my first birthday, there's a photograph of me lunging for the birthday cake. Now, somebody could say, oh, it was pretty, it was colorful, it was just a baby thing. Oh, it was not. I knew it was cake. I was very precocious when it came to desserts, and I wanted all of it. And I wanted all of that kind of stuff for 33 years. What made the situation really, really bad in my early life was that my dad was a diet doctor, and my mom worked in what they used to call reducing salons, which were these kind of precursors to health clubs where there were all these belts and rollers, and you'd strap yourself in and you're supposed to jiggle like this. And if you jiggled long enough and with sufficient intent, great chunks of yourself were supposed to float off into the stratosphere, never to be heard from again. It didn't work that way for me. So I was a fat kid, I was bad for business, and I was put on diets. Remember 5 or 6 years ago when Atkins came around again and everybody was going, oh, this is new, this is great, you get to eat all this meat and all this fat. That wasn't new. My dad brought that diet home for me from a medical convention in Las Vegas in 1965. So there is nothing new under the sun. I just knew that I was so sick of dieting that once I got old enough, I would never, ever do it again. But once I got old enough, I went on weirder diets than my parents had ever come up with. I also got into fasting. We had a wonderful presentation this morning about fasting for healing. And if, heaven forbid, I ever had a condition that just good living and raw food couldn't take care of, I would totally get myself to a fasting place. But never, ever would I recommend that to someone as a way to lose weight. Why? Because we need to come back to center. Whenever we've been at one extreme, the body wants to take us to the other extreme to get us back to the center point. So all that fasting really just helped me get fatter. So finally, I gave up. That was the answer for me. I was so tired of fighting it that one day I just said, you know what, God? I can't do this anymore. Maybe I'll never be thin, but could you at least just make me free? And from that moment, people started coming into my life, information came into my life that changed the relationship. And so I also ended up thin. Who knew? So what I want to share with you today is first to just get you to know where you are in relation to this thing. Now, so many people in our country and our culture can have weight issues without being compulsive overeaters, without having this emotional, spiritual component. And that's simply because we live in a culture where it's very easy to eat a lot of rich food. It's what's available, it's what's reasonably priced, it's what most people live on. And also, it's very easy to never move. especially now with the advent of the internet. We can communicate with people, we can do our jobs, we can be entertained, and never have to get up. I mean, we have these really fit fingers and kind of BlackBerry thumbs, but other than that, we could be totally sedentary. So between the abundance of rich food and a sedentary life, it is certainly very easy in this culture to have a weight problem without having an eating problem. We're going to talk today much more about the eating problem. So I do want to ask just a few questions to get started. You don't have to raise your hand or anything, but you might want to just make a check mark if it's a yes for you on your own private paper and an X if it's a no for you. So the first question that I would like to ask is, do you ever worry that just maybe you relate to food a little bit differently from the average person? Check mark is a yes, X is a no. Do you ever eat to respond to life? That means, have you ever eaten because you were lonely, or bored, or sad, or afraid, or rejected, or any of those icky feelings that made this kind of hole right about here feel really big and deep, and you thought that maybe a sweet, creamy thing or a salty, crunchy thing would help? Check mark if that's a yes. Do you ever sneak food, hide food, or eat differently with people than you do when you're by yourself? Check mark yes, X for no. Have you ever responded to overeating with extra exercise or laxatives or vomiting or a colonic? Check for yes. And finally, no matter how you've answered any of those other questions, here's the big one. This is the definitive question. Have you, in this lifetime, dieted for the purpose of losing weight 3 times or more? If you have done that, you're in the right class. Hey there, John. Pleasure. Because we know that a definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting the same result. And you've all known people. My gosh, she just married her 3rd alcoholic. What is wrong with her? Well, something. 1 time could happen to anybody. 2, bad luck. 3 times, there's a problem. It's the same with dieting. Remember when Kirstie Alley went on Oprah and she was talking about how awful it was, and then she said, you know, Oprah, what my real problem is. And I was waiting for her to reveal the light, for her to tell us that her real problem was an empty hole right about here. Blaise Pascal said, there is an empty hole in every man that only God can fill. If you don't like the word God, use another one. If you don't like the word man, use another one. The empty hole is here. We all have it. It's here so that we'll search for meaning. But instead, we try to fill it with other stuff. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's relationships that don't work, maybe it's spending money, maybe it's making money. Doesn't matter. That's not really what fills the hole. Makes a lot of sense to want to fill it with food. I mean, it's right here close to your stomach. Doesn't work. And I thought Kirstie was going to tell us about that empty hole and enlighten us all, but instead she said, Oprah, you know what my real problem is? It's my hips and my thighs. You know, there are a lot of people out there thinking that that's what the real problem is. It's not. So today, I'm going to give you 9 points. Many of these come from this book, The Love-Powered Diet, that I've decorated the stage with. We have them for sale afterwards. They belong to Living Light. But these 9 points you can start to use right now today if you answered any of these questions affirmatively and you'd like to change that. I'm going to address these questions as if this were not a raw food group, as if you all were not as enlightened as you are about food, because in case there is somebody here who is suffering and maybe is not as enlightened as the rest of you, or even worse, somebody who is suffering and who is as enlightened as the rest of you. It really hurts when you know a lot and you can't apply it. So we're going to do this in a very elementary form, and then at the very end, I want to answer the big question. Can a food addict go raw? Ooh, so stay tuned for that. All right. Point number 1 in a love-powered approach to overcoming overeating: love and value yourself. This is very difficult for anybody in our culture who's ever had a weight problem, because overweight is the last prejudice that's still okay. We all know that a few days ago, PETA, an organization that I have admired and supported, came out with a billboard. Did you all see that? Well, it was just an awful thing. I don't know how many of these billboards they put up, but it said, "Save the whales, lose your blubber, go vegetarian," and had a picture of an obese person in a bikini. Now, this is appalling, and yet it's allowed. It's allowed in our culture. I remember suffering a lot from people who just thought that they had the right to come up and comment about my body and my food. I remember once being in a cafeteria line, and I reached for something, and the man next to me said, "Oh, I wasn't going to have that because it's fattening, but heck, you're stocky, and if you're having it, I guess I can too." It's like, who are you, mister? These things happen. Maybe some of you have had similar experiences. But you need to know that no matter where you are on your journey today, no matter what the size or shape of your body, no matter what you ate yesterday, no matter what you did yesterday or last year or 20 years ago, no matter what was done to you yesterday or last year or 20 years ago, no matter what anyone has ever said about you or thinks of you, you are one delectable creation. You are an expression of the divine. You have to carry this with you if you're going to be able to go down this path of change. I know that we have this afternoon the Engleharts from Cafe Gratitude who are going to be speaking to us. I am so excited about meeting them because I actually had a spiritual experience at one of the Cafe Gratitude restaurants. A couple of years ago, I was on book tour. Now, we all know we're having this recession. They used to send authors on tour, and they'd fly us around, and limos would pick us up at the airport. Oh, it was so great. But these days, you just basically take a bus to the nearest Catholic church and light a candle for Oprah. But a couple of years ago, we're still doing the tour thing, so I was out here in Northern California speaking at Book Passage in Corte Madera. Friend picked me up, took me to lunch at Cafe Gratitude. I hadn't seen her in a long time. And you all know that Cafe Gratitude has this wonderful menu where every dish is an affirmation. So if you're having a full meal, you get to say, "I am beautiful, I am generous, I am gracious, I am blessed." Well, I wasn't paying that much attention to the name of my dish, but I have to say that when the young server brought it to the table, handed it to me and said, "You are worthy," I was totally taken aback because I get told good things a lot. You know, we're all rich in life in different ways, and I am very rich in people telling me great things. I mean, I hear things like, I love your books, I really appreciate your message, I like your haircut. Never had anybody ever said to me, "You are worthy." Now, it is very embarrassing after 10 self-help books to say that your life is changed by an amply pierced and tattooed 23-year-old. But it was. And that's really the foundation of this amazing journey toward making peace with food and the body. First, you have to know that you're worth it. If you don't believe you're worth it, that's okay. You just have to convince yourself until one of these days you do believe it. You need to be surrounded by people who can know it for you until you know it yourself. This is the foundation. This is the basis. Number 2, if you answered several of those questions in our little quiz affirmatively, run, do not walk, to a recovery program. You see, this is an inner problem. No diet is going to fix it. Not even the best diet on the face of the earth can cure a spiritual illness. So you need to work at this on a variety of levels. If you are indeed a food addict, and that's what that quiz was about, to see if indeed you may be, you really need to recover from the soul on out. I heartily recommend Overeaters Anonymous. You can find them online, overeatersanonymous.org. They have meetings all over the place. They have online meetings, phone meetings. Doesn't cost anything. When you go to a live meeting, they'll just pass the hat to pay the rent in the church basement or the hospital storage room or wherever they happen to be meeting. They don't weigh you because this is not about the food part. You deal with the food with your own good sense. This is about the empty hole. You don't have to be fat, you don't have to be thin, you don't have to be anything. You just have to show up. And people there will help you for 2 reasons. Number 1 is they have a program that works, and that's the 12-step program, the same one they use in AA and Gamblers Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous and all the rest. This is a very magical way of life. In this book, The Love-Powered Diet, I go through the 12 steps for overeaters, and writing that and now rewriting that, because this book has been newly updated and revised, has reintroduced me to the magic of these basic spiritual principles. You don't have to believe anything. You can be any religion, no religion. This is about taking care of the empty hole. And I don't know of other ways that do that. There probably are. This is a big world. There are lots of ways to do everything. What I know is that these 12 steps do it. They do it effectively. And one reason that I'm giving you 9 tips today is that in Feng Shui, 9 is the number of completion. And that's what we're about here. The end of it. I'm finished with dieting. I'm finished with losing weight and gaining it back again and having what they call an AA pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, because that's really what it feels like. Oh, look at me, I'm so great. And now I'm going to hide. That's how I used to live my life. You don't want that. So OA or a similar program can help you there. If you go to a meeting and you don't like the people, go to a different one. People are imperfect. These principles are pretty close to perfect. I want to give you just a tiny bit of history. In 1939, when a New York stockbroker named Bill Wilson hooked up with an Akron gynecologist named Bob Smith, and AA came into being, that was the first time in history that alcoholics had hope. Before that, an alcoholic had 2 options. He could either die or be institutionalized. These 12 steps changed all that, not just for alcoholics, but eventually for other addicts as well. Prior to AA, there was an alcoholic who had a lot of money. So he took the big fancy steamship and went over to Europe to Dr. Carl Jung. And he thought he really got it. Came back home, all ready to start his life anew, and within 2 weeks he was drunk again. Got back on the big fancy ship. Went back to Carl Jung and said, what happened? Jung said, people like you almost never recover. The only time that they do is when they're able to have a complete emotional displacement and rearrangement, something akin to a spiritual experience. That was what I was trying to bring about in you, and obviously I failed. Well, the man was very desolate, went back home thinking that he would die or be incarcerated. But by then, AA had come into being, he got these 12 steps, adequate support, and he was okay. That's how powerful this is. If you're not an addict, you don't need it. If you are, give yourself a break and get the help that's out there. Number 3, ooh, this is so radical. I suggest that you eat 3 meals a day. Now, I know that if you read the popular press, if you're a woman and you read women's magazines, that flies in the face of everything that they say. They say, graze. Like a magical mantra, you're supposed to eat all day long and it will keep your blood sugar steady. Well, you know what? Maybe on paper or in some laboratory it does do that. But I will tell you what I know as a compulsive overeater in the real world. The problem is not starting to eat. The problem is stopping. And if you only start 3 times a day, you only have to stop 3 times a day. Now, I understand that there are people with health conditions where they are medically told that they have to eat often. If that's your case, I'm sorry that's your case. You have to deal with what you've got. But for the vast majority of people, society is set up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You go on vacation and stay at a bed and breakfast. You get a job. By law, the boss in the middle of the day has to give you some time for, you're interested in a fella or a young woman. And you're really hoping you guys can get together and go out for dinner. That's how it works. It works that way around the world. Besides that, if you answered yes to most of those questions on the quiz, chances are, at least some of the time, food is not an indication to you to stop eating. It's an indication to you to keep on eating. And this is what civilians do not understand. And this includes physicians, nutritionists, and other people that we go to for help. It makes sense to them that if you eat something, that takes care of wanting to eat something. But if you're a compulsive overeater and you eat something, it can open the floodgates. Woohoo, that was good. Where is more? If you understand that, you're in this category. If you don't, well, you're a civilian. Good for you. Also, it's just plain good for your digestion not to be putting food into your body all day long. Now, I know when we're eating raw and we're eating light, it's a little different. So morning time, you might want to start with some wonderful juice and eat some fruit through the morning. That's fine. But if you're eating more of a conventional diet, if you're sitting down in the morning and having a nice big bowl of muesli, and then lunch, maybe you're going to have a salad and a sandwich, these are substantial meals. The body has to deal with them. If you just keep putting food in there all day long, it's kind of like working in an office. Let's say you're a very efficient administrative assistant. If you know that your boss is going to bring you work at certain times of the day, you can keep that work so organized, you can get everything done, you can leave in the evening with your desk clear. But if you've got a boss or several bosses who every time something comes up, they drop it on your desk, it doesn't have to be big projects. It can be little bitty tiny things, like we talk about these little snacks and these little mini meals. They're still going to be flooding your desk and flooding your day with stuff to do. Well, that's just how your digestive system feels. So give 3 meals a day a shot. If you have a lull in the afternoon, have a piece of fruit, have a glass of fresh juice, but don't have concentrated food between meals. Now, I'm going to tell you the other reason why 3 meals a day for food addicts is absolutely essential. We have to learn how to sit with those cravings. We have to learn how to be with them and come to know that a craving never killed anybody. A craving only returns where it has been invited. Now think about it. Imagine somebody at your door wanting you to change religions, or maybe a kid selling magazine subscriptions. If you don't want to change religions, or you don't want to subscribe to magazines, you might want to be nice, and you open the door and you chat with them, and you invite them in for some nice herbal tea. They are going to come back to your door until you are thoroughly converted or subscribed. A craving is the same way. You don't want to invite it in. You want to just sit with it and let it go away. Now, do I mean just sit, as in meditate? Well, that's the best. Now, certainly, you can do something else when a craving strikes. You can just change your activity. You can go out and take a walk. You can go to a movie. You can call somebody up. If you're in a program like OA, you can go to a meeting. Those are all great. The only problem with these substitutions is sometimes we substitute another addiction. Have you ever done something like that, or do you know somebody like that? Well, I'm not eating anymore, and so I'm going out picking up sailors or whatever else you might choose to change to. So you want to watch that. But the basic premise is you want to be able to sit with those feelings. I'm going to tell you a little fable from the Love-Powered Diet. I made it up myself, but it works. Once upon a time, a woman lived in a small village and her house was possessed by demons. She went to the parish priest and he would invariably come to her home and exorcise them, but they always returned. And there were always more of them, and they were more frightening than before. So on this particular day, she was in total panic when she went into town and said, "Oh, Father, you have to come and perform another exorcism." And the priest said, "I'm sorry. I think in a case of this magnitude, I'm going to have to give you the holy stool." So he pulled out from his chair this simple wooden hassock. And he said, "You need to take this holy stool, and whenever the demons come, set it in the middle of the floor and sit on it, knowing that it's holy and knowing that it will make them go away." Well, the woman wasn't quite sure it would work, but it was all she was offered, so she took it home. And sure enough, that night, the demons returned. They were abounding from cellar to dome. She was so frightened, but she grabbed the holy stool, she put it in the middle of the floor, and she sat. And within a very short time, the demons started to leave until her house was cleared. Well, they came back 1 time, 2 times, few times, but never so many. But she didn't want to lose her edge, so she kept that stool, and the priest missed his favorite hassock for the rest of his life. Now, the moral of that story is when you sit with your demons, eventually they will go away. When you eat 3 meals a day, you have that lovely span of time between breakfast and lunch, between lunch and dinner, between dinner and bedtime to the next breakfast. When you learn how to be, you learn how to live. Once you know that, you're very much on your way to becoming friends with food and making peace with those demons from the past. Number 4, if you've been binging, eat out. Ah, what a travesty, because we all know that foods that they serve out at restaurants are very rich and they give you really big portions, and how can you possibly lose weight doing that? I don't care if you lose weight right now. I want you to gain sanity. And if you have been binging, if you have been eating all day long, if you have been eating to the point where you just feel so sick, if you've been popping the Tums and maybe the X-Lax, eat out. Here are the caveats. Eat out at a place where you can sit down and where they have dishes that would break if you dropped them. You don't want to do fast food, in other words. If you can go somewhere where the food is fabulous, if you can go here next door and eat at Living Light 3 meals a day for a day or 2 or 3 or until you've broken the pattern, that's ideal. But in all honesty, if you have to eat at Denny's until you've broken the pattern, you've got to break the pattern. And once you have, then you're freer. You can go forward. Number 5, you have to do this 1 day at a time. Now, we've all heard people say, and maybe we've said ourselves, I need to lose 18 pounds before my sister's wedding. I need to lose so many pounds before this or that happens. You know what? That's all out there somewhere. Who knows what's going to happen before your sister's wedding? What you need to do is treat yourself well today. Today, you want to feed yourself the best food you know how. Today, you want to live the best life you know how. Today, this is the only day you've got. Your sister's wedding will take care of itself. You do well today, tomorrow is taken care of. And when you get this 24-hour program down, there's no way to fail. Because even if you're not perfect today, that's okay. We're never going to be perfect. You pick up yourself, you keep going, and all is well. Have you ever been on a diet and said, I blew it? Yep. I had an extra helping of string beans, so I'd better eat a half-gallon of ice cream. That's the logic. But you know that's not the logic you want. You keep it in the day. How am I doing today? What's going on with me right now, this moment? Maxwell Maltz, a plastic surgeon, wrote a wonderful book back in the 60s called Psycho-Cybernetics. And he said to live each day in day-tight compartments. Think about that. Think about these food containers they sell next door, the nice glass ones with the plastic lids. They're going to keep your food airtight so it'll last a long time. You want to live your life in day-tight compartments. This is it. This is what you've got today. Live it fully, and the rest will take care of itself. Stop watching your weight. Stop watching your weight and start living your life. How does that sound? We get obsessed with the scale. We get obsessed with numbers. We live in a very numeric culture. But your weight really has nothing to do with anything. That's an indication of some stuff, and it's not even a great indication of that. I mean, Dr. Graham can tell you out there that if you really, really work out hard and heavy and you build fat or build muscle, that weighs more than fat. So the scale is going to say you're heavier. In that case, that would be a good thing. So you don't want weight to be the focus of your life. You know in metaphysics how they say what you focus on gets bigger. You don't want to focus on the size and the weight of your body. You want to focus on how you're living your life. So don't weigh yourself very often. Once a month is okay. Once a month, same day, that's going to tell you when something has really happened. Avoid doing any more than that, because then you can get into the whole kind of anorexic thinking. You can just make yourself nuts, because a scale very rarely tells a chronic overeater anything helpful. Because if it says your weight is a little bit up, you hate yourself. I am going to starve for 3 days, and then you end up binging by noon. Or say you've lost a little. Oh, I've lost a little. I'm going to have some extra nuts on that. So just don't go nuts by weighing yourself all the time. And don't let your weight be an item of conversation. You know when you start to lose weight, that's happened, people will say, oh my God, you look so great. What have you been doing? And if you get into that, then you're going to be the object of observation. And then the minute it might look like you've gained a pound or two, who do you think is going to be over there at the water cooler saying, she really looked good last week. It's getting bad now. You want to be out of that whole thing. The size and shape of your body is nobody's business but yours. So don't curry the favor of those people who want to tell you how great you are if you look like you're losing weight. Just say, thank you, I feel really healthy. Now, what do we have to do next? Divert the attention from that, because it's nobody's business. Number 7, live richly. You need to have a rich life so your food won't have to be so rich. You want to have, as our lovely yoga teacher said this morning, a sweet life, so you don't need to eat so much sweet food. You want to put into your life things that are so thrilling and so exciting and so wonderful that life is worth waking up for. Do you live someplace that you absolutely love? I live in New York City. I open my shades in the morning. I see that I'm still there. Oh my gosh, is that happy making for me? There's a great word. I learned it from that movie, Aquila and the Bee, which is about a spelling bee. The word is eudaimonic, E-U-D-A-E-M-O-N-I-C. Nobody uses that word outside of spelling bees, but it means happy making. So living in New York City is happy making for me. Coming to the Vibrant Living Expo is happy making for me. I emailed my husband yesterday from the BlackBerry and just said, I must have really had an accident on one of those windy roads because I'm sure I'm dead and this is heaven. This is so great. So you want to put wonder in your life, and it doesn't have to be great big stuff. It's not winning the lottery. It's paying attention. It's paying attention to the stories of your life and being a participant in those. Because when you're busy living, then you just need to eat to keep on going so you can keep having a rich, wonderful life instead of eating for the sake of eating. Number 8, deepen your spiritual life. In AA, they say that as long as the alcoholic is in fit spiritual condition, he can go anywhere on earth that other free men go, and he's perfectly protected. Another lovely phrase they have is that puts you in a zone of neutrality, safe and protected. Don't you want to be there? Not just around food, but around life in general. Zone of neutrality, safe and protected. You get that from having contact with that spiritual essence within you. It can be the traditional God. It can be guides and spirits. It can be nature. It can be love. It doesn't matter how you interpret it, just that it's yours, that you connect to it, and that it works. Because here's the truth about addiction, compulsive eating, or whatever kind we're talking about. You once had willpower, and it's like a rubber band, and you stretch it out. Every time you diet, every time you binge, it stretches that rubber band, and ultimately, oops, band broke. The willpower's gone. It's not of any use anymore. So what are you going to do? Call on a power that doesn't break and that doesn't run out. That's this higher power. How do you do that? You want to start every day by connecting with this power. I'm just going to say God because that's a nice short word. God, today. I can't do the food thing, can't be in the food business. I know you can do that for me, and I thank you in advance for what a great job we're going to do today. Every night, thank you. Higher power, guides, angels, spirits, love, nature, whatever you call it, thank you that we did as well as we did. Even if I wasn't perfect, you are. And it's just going to keep on getting better. You want to learn how to meditate. 5-10 minutes a day. You've just got to be quiet so that power can speak to you. And when it does, you go out there in the world past whatever kind of food it is that gives you fits, and you don't have to participate either in eating it or in being stressed about it because this other power has come in to see you through. Finally, number 9, we're going to get down to the food. We all like food. Choose the very best food from what's available. Sometimes when I do this in a presentation, I'll say, I'm going to give you the very best piece of dietary advice that I know. It is so wonderful. I want you to give me a drum roll. Da, 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 da. Choose the very best food from what's available. And people are sitting there going, that didn't deserve a drum roll. Yeah, it did. Because when you're choosing the best, you're training your brain computer 3 times a day to make the best choices. So if you're over here at the Living Light, you can't really make a lot of mistakes. It's such great food. If you're at a wonderful farmer's market, if you're at Cafe Gratitude, you're going to have a lot of good choices. But let's say that you're driving cross country. Let's say you're driving through my native state of Missouri on an interstate. What kind of choices are you going to have? Not so hot. But even there, if you make the best choice from what's available, you're going to improve your nutrition immensely, and you're going to improve your brain power quite a bit to always make good choices. This is going to spill over beyond food into the conversations that you have, the movies you see, the people that you attract and allow into your life. You want to choose the best. You want to be sure that the food you eat is good enough for you. When I started dating, every boy that came to the house, my grandmother would say, "That boy's not good enough for you." I think I could have brought some British prince, and he wouldn't have been good enough, at least not in her eyes. But I think of that phrase, and I want to give that to you in terms of your food. You want your food to be good enough for you, because what are you trying to do with your life? Vibrate at a higher level. Now, just in closing here, before we get to raw food for compulsive overeaters, and we're talking about really, really good food, I want to talk about the favorite female food group, and that would be the chocolate group. Now, I want you to know that in something like that, that's a little edgy. You know, sometimes compulsive overeaters just can't eat certain things. If you have never in your life eaten chocolate rationally, then you just plumb should not be eating chocolate. If you have never had one cookie, you shouldn't be eating cookies. I'm sorry. You know how they say for alcoholics, one drink is too many, 1,000 are not enough? Sometimes one bite is too many and 1,000 aren't enough. But if you're not in that category and you just enjoy chocolate, I want to let you in on the greatest chocolate secret, and that is chocolate is like sex. It can go all the way from a spiritual experience to a criminal act. This chocolate down here is what you get when you're paying for gas, and you're going to eat it really fast and put the wrapper under the seat before anybody finds it. You deserve chocolate and everything else in life up here, the very, very best. And the very, very best is going to be a little expensive, so you're not going to have a whole bunch of it. You're going to have one lovely, wonderful piece in a beautiful little bag with tissue paper that you will save and reuse and regift. You're going to put on some tea, make some lovely herbal tea, a little Mozart, put your lovely piece of chocolate on that nice china saucer you inherited from your grandmother. That's what you deserve, the best of everything. Can a compulsive overeater do well on raw foods? Oh, yes. As long as you're choosing raw foods because that's where you're vibrating today. If you're looking to raw foods to be the answer, the way Atkins was going to be the answer, and Weight Watchers was going to be the answer, and Jenny Craig was going to be the answer, it is the best diet on earth, but it doesn't have the power to be the answer. As long as you're seeking the answer on the inside and you're attracted to raw foods, you have the most beautiful combination. I don't think I was ready for raw foods 25 years ago when I came to recover from compulsive overeating. I was ready to be vegan. Hadn't been able to be vegan before that because there just wasn't enough vegan junk food that could accommodate my need for frequent binging. But once the whole was taken care of, I was given the gift of being vegan. And more recently, I've been given the gift of being high raw. It ought to be against the law to feel as good as I feel. I never thought at the age that I am, which I am sure as heck not going to share with you, I would feel this incredible, amazing, and fabulous. This is one great way to eat. But first, take care of the whole, and then the rest will be a gift that you so, so very much deserve. Now, I do want to let you know, this is the book, The Love-Powered Diet, Eating for Freedom, Health, and Joy. If you'd like a copy, I'm going to be on a panel after this, so I can't go back over for the regular book signings. You can just buy it from me. You'd make out your check to the Living Light Institute, $21.75. If you want to pay cash, it's $22. If you need to use a card, you have to go over there to the marketplace and buy a copy and track me down to sign it later. But if you'd like one right now and like it signed, we can do it that way. I am happy to take a couple of questions. Unless I scared you all to death. Yes. Oh, bless you. Well, because that was what I grew up with, her question is about a child who overeats. Never single the child out. It would be better if that child went out and ate French fries if their siblings were eating French fries than to say, no, no, not for you. Because that creates this idea of I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me, I don't like myself. So what you want to do is have fabulous food around for the whole family. Everybody's going to eat wonderful food. When it's a particularly low glycemic, low calorie kind of food like, oh my gosh, the farmer's market has the first strawberries, is this cool? You want your kids to get excited about strawberries. You want to say when you make a green smoothie, oh my gosh, this is the best one ever. So that even though all those other influences are coming in from the Happy Meal ads and all the rest, that at home, where we really get our idea of what is normal, and that carries all through life, that what is normal is we love strawberries, and we get a kick out of lettuce that we dip in some kind of dip. And then you just want to encourage in this child a belief in his or her wonderfulness. Anything that you can do to let this child know that he or she came here for a purpose that nobody else can do, and you are just tickled pink to have this kid in your life. Yes.
So can you use your book as a base for a 12-step group?
Yes, she asked if you can use the book as a base for a 12-step group. You absolutely can. It takes you through the 12 steps. It lists them in the back just as they're listed in AA. And having a group is really, really important. And I think essential. I'm not sure that, in fact, let me back up. I absolutely know for certain that without the support of people who understand this disease, because it is indeed a disease, I could not have gone 25 and a half years without eating for a fix. So you do need other people. It is important. I want to give you the name of one other group you might want to check out. They're called All Addicts Anonymous, alladdictsanonymous.org online. And they go back to old-time AA. They use the 12 steps, and they also use something called the 4 absolutes. And I'll just leave that with you today. Those are absolute honesty, absolute purity. Think about that when you're making your smoothie. Absolute unselfishness and absolute love. You get that going for you, nobody can take you down. Thank you so much.